Skyrim, the indomitable north of Tamriel and home of the Nords. She's as harsh as she is majestic. With a diverse landscape from snow-capped mountains to lush green woodlands, these untamed wilds are home to some of the toughest inhabitants in all of Nirn. Our team was only able to enter these lands quite recently due to the end of the Civil War, a conflict that had been raging for the past 15 years between the Empire and Stormcloak rebels. But we're not here to discuss the squabbles between wandering El-Nofay descendants. We're here for something far more interesting. The wildlife. So join us now on an adventure from the southern forests to the frozen north as we search for the hardy creatures that have carved out a life here in the frigid wilderness of Skyrim. We've once again been joined by our guide, David, who led our previous expeditions in the lands of Vermund and Batal with minimal difficulties. David and the production crew set up camp in Whiterun, with its central location making it a good base of operations to set forth from. The city's status as a trading hub, expansive views and crisp fresh air have combined to make Whiterun one of Skyrim's most appealing cities to live in. Now one of the region's largest populations, it's a bustling metropolis that would require at least a large living room to host everyone in. Beyond the city's walls, we don't need to step far before encountering animals, because for the Nords, sharing their homes with them is a crucial way of life. Nordic farms can be found all around settlement outskirts, with common domestic livestock such as chickens, cows, and Dunmer happily pottering around freely. While this might look like a quaint, peaceful life, being out in the open means that these farms sometimes get uninvited company wandering in, and it's not always people. Giants. These titans of the tundra don't need much introduction, since their thunderous footsteps and towering visuals alert anyone within the horizon's view. Due to their low intelligence, primitive speech and slow, lumbering movements, travellers frequently mistake them for Nords. But if one looks closely with a keen eye, it is possible to tell the difference. The giants' preference is to keep to themselves, staying within their decorated camps where they manufacture cheese and roast delicious skeever meat. But while normally peaceful, the giants' huge clubs aren't just for those hard-to-reach itches. They're extremely territorial. Anything approaching a giant's camp will be given a clear warning, with grunts, stomps, and clubs being raised to the sky. And for anyone so bereft of thought that they ignore these warnings, they will likely earn themselves a free ticket to Admora. With farmers being the most likely to encounter a wandering giant, to this day some still partake in an ancient practice where they gift the giants a symbol-covered cow as a kind of peace offering. Cows aren't the only animals to be found with giants. No, they also have larger, woolly friends. Mammoths. These enormous milk tankers peacefully coexist with the giants, with the mammoths providing a dairy source, and the giants offering protection for the herd. These tamed mammoths have their tusks engraved with symbols, and any man, mare or creature that dares to harm them will feel the full force of the giant's wrath. Just like their tall friends, mammoths are kind enough to give encroachers a heads up that they're not happy about it, trumpeting and kicking the ground as a warning. It's quite advisable to heed their warnings, as these hulking beasts are more than capable of bulldozing through anything ahead of them. South of the central tundra, the windswept plains give way to a more hospitable landscape. With enormous pine trees and crystal clear fresh water, the southern forests of Skyrim offer their inhabitants some much needed respite from the harsher climates beyond. As you might expect, these woodlands are a thriving ecosystem, supporting life of all shapes and sizes. Two common critters to be found here are skittish ones, deer and their larger elk cousins. They can both be found foraging through the plentiful shrubbery, and males can be heard bugling in the distance. Their skittishness isn't without reason, however, as where there's deer and elk, another four-legged denizen won't be far behind. Wolves. These cunning hunters are perfectly at home, using the trees and foliage to approach their prey unseen, before the chase begins. The woodland food chain has brought this deer's time on Nirn to an end. Wolves aren't the only predators to roam the Falkreath forests, nor are they the largest. Bears. While they might spend most of their free time napping and looking generally cuddly, it would be a mistake to attest this to a friendly nature. Far from it, bears are aggressively territorial and will warn any potential foe by standing tall above the height of even the largest Nords. And if they give chase, well, you better have a strong sword arm. All of these creatures, and the ancient forests they inhabit, are watched over by nature's guardians, Spriggans. These alluring woodland spirits live in the glades and coves, protecting them from outside intrusion. And while many a traveller can't help but admire the Spriggans' ethereal presence and aura, the feeling is rarely mutual. Most Spriggans will instantly turn hostile upon sight of man or mare, and can even rally other woodland critters to their side. The Spriggans themselves can viciously slice foes with their claw-like fingers, or summon swarms of insects to devour any unlucky opponent. If one survives an encounter with a Spriggan, they might not forget you, because in the old Nordic myths, Spriggans are said to be immortal, and will in time come back, even bigger and stronger. At the other end of Skyrim, things are a little more nippy. The north is a desolate landscape, with the Sea of Ghosts on one side, imposing mountains on the other, and nothing but fields of snow and howling winds in between. Unsurprisingly, the region is largely uninhabited outside of the city of Dawnstar, a port settlement where only the most weather-worn fishermen and miners can etch out a life. In the surrounding frozen wasteland, however, there are a few who manage to call it home, like these blubbery lard buckets. More commonly known as Horkers, these large mammals can be found in herds, casually lounging by the icy water's edge. And while they might attempt to confront any potential threats that come too close, their plodding nature means that it's quite difficult for them to be taken seriously. This lack of physical mobility while on land makes them easy prey for hunters, such as the ice wolf. Larger than its woodland cousin, for this canine a meal the size of a Horker is a prized delicacy, worth any risk. And this one successful hunt could fuel it for the next 2 weeks. As dangerous as the Ice Wolf is, they're not alone in claiming these remote lands as theirs. The snowy Sabre Cat. With equal points in strength and dexterity, they're the ultimate hunter and the North's apex predator. Camouflaged and under the cover of ceaseless winds, the Sabre Cat will silently stalk their victim until just the right time, at which point for their prey, it's already over. Another furry feline you might find in Skyrim is the Khajiit. Just like the Sabre Cats, Khajiit aren't allowed within the city walls, so they're commonly found in makeshift camps or pouncing along the roads. Opinion on their treatment is greatly divided, however, with some lords thinking Khajiit are simply misunderstood, while others think Pelnal should have finished the job. As we've seen, from the southern forests to the frozen north, life thrives all over Skyrim, but not all of it is on the surface. Deep beneath the tundra and mountains are endless caverns, and these sunless realms have developed their own ecosystems that rival the land above. With mostly only dim, organic sources of light, the inhabitants here have had to adapt to life in the dark. And for one of the cave dwellers calling this home, that adaptation was brutally forced upon them. The Falmer. Long ago, these tortured souls were known as snow elves, a great marish race that once thrived above these tunnels. Driven from the surface by the Nords, the Falmer's ancestors took shelter with the ancient Dwemer, but at a heavy cost. They were forced to consume a toxic fungus that rendered them blind. Thousands of years of evolution, blind and living underground, twisted these poor elves into the beings we see today. While primitive and vicious, they're not without thought. They enjoy playing peekaboo with explorers, and breed other creatures for companionship and crafting resources. They keep Chaurus around for their chitin, which they turn into armour, and spiders for their venom, which they coat their weapons in. These creepy crawlies also make for good sentries, alerting the Falmer to the presence of unwanted guests.
You picked a bad time to get lost, friend.
David and the crew didn't quite feel like having their days on Nirn cut short down here, so they backed off and left these creatures of the deep in peace. Back up on the surface, there's another inhabitant that, much like the Falmer, isn't exactly photogenic. The Hagravens. Once witches, they've undergone the darkest of rituals to become the creatures they are today. Hagravens are revered by the Forsworn, Reachman rebels who are waging a guerrilla war against the Nords, claiming that the Reach belongs to them. The Hagravens act as matriarchs for some of these clans, and use their twisted magic to create the powerful Briarheart warriors. These men of the Reach willingly sacrifice themselves in a ritual, one that sees the Hagraven rip out their heart and replace it with the seed of a Briarheart tree. Rumours are that these avian horrors even seek out marriage, so if you're ever on a night out at the Bannered Mare, do watch how much you drink. Dotted all around Skyrim are the ruins of ancient Nordic society, with most of them being tombs for the dead. On the inside, however, that doesn't mean all is quiet, for the Nordic undead have a bad habit of roaming the halls. Once followers of the dragon cult, or guardians of lords, the Draugrs were warriors who were sacrificed before being embalmed and reanimated, allowing them to forever guard these ancient barrows. And they're not alone. Spooky skeletons can also be frequently found shambling about, and will join the Draugr in defending these ancient crypts from the living. Lording over many of these devout Draugr and skeleton minions is a being of immense magical ability, the Dragon Priest. These ancient sorcerers were once the leaders of the dragon cult and ruled over Skyrim like kings. They long ago achieved a form of lichdom and are now sustained by the eternal worship of their loyal Draugr followers. Only the most experienced explorers would dare confront a Dragon Priest, for they are amongst the most powerful beings in Skyrim, or even all of Tamriel. Back out in the open, there's another enigmatic denizen that is best avoided. The first telltale sign of their presence are these whimsical lights, known as wisps. They innocently float and dart around to catch your attention, but it's unwise to take the bait, because these wisps are nothing more than lures, tendrils of the ethereal Wispmother. Seemingly unbothered by the freezing temperatures, the exact nature of Wispmothers is debated to this day. It's not known for sure if they're undead, elemental beings, or ancient snow elves who achieved some form of lichdom. Whatever they truly are, they're masters of frost magic and can even summon shades, making them extremely dangerous foes for all but the most stalwart adventurers.
Enough!
It would be uncouth of us to document these lands without visiting its crowning jewel, the highest mountain in all of Tamriel, the throat of the world. Distant and detached from the drama of the lands below, if you've had enough of the frivolous whinings of men and mare, then this is the place to be. One can be completely alone here for deep contemplation of unanswerable questions, such as, why does reading a book stop time for everyone else? Or, how will Morrowind be bullied even more in the future? We might never know the answers to such things, but on the throat of the world, you can at least ponder such questions with a view like no other. However, reaching these serene heights of the mountain is another question entirely, for if one is to walk the 7,000 steps to High Hrothgar, at some point you're going to have to pay the troll toll. Trolls are found all over Skyrim, and indeed Tamriel, and this particular specimen enforces a strict tax policy upon any pilgrim walking the mountain path. David tried asking if this tax was officially collected on behalf of the hold, and while he did get a response, it wasn't a verbal one. If being clobbered by a snow troll wasn't enough to ruin your day, there's a night dweller in Skyrim that hits even harder. Werewolves. Beasts of tales and nightmares, these bloodthirsty predators are amongst the most vicious in all of Nirn. Once people who have received the so-called blessing of Hersing, they erupt in an excruciatingly painful transformation and then lose themselves in a ravenous moonlit hunt. With armour-piercing claws and razor-sharp fangs, if faced with a werewolf, there's little you can do but accept your fate. This brings us to the grand finale of our time in Skyrim, with just one last inhabitant to show, and of course, we've saved the best for last. It's the one you've been waiting for, the mythical beast of Nordic legends, the mud crab. The most belligerent force in all of Skyrim, mud crabs will take up pincers against absolutely anything that dares cross their path. With hardened shells, a moderate snake stat, and capable of giving little nips, no one is safe from being mildly irritated by the mud crab. Oh, and Skyrim also has dragons. The frigid wilds of Skyrim proved to be a landscape unlike anything our team have previously documented. From the frozen northern ice caps, to the windswept tundra, and the majesty of the mountain peaks, the raw beauty of Skyrim is simply undeniable. However, in contrast to the grandeur of its landscape, our team also discovered that Skyrim can be a silly place, full of silly inhabitants doing silly things. This would frequently impede our filming efforts, so here's a collection of clips from when Skyrim refused to stick to the script.
What was that? What was that? Come on!
And with that, our time in the lands of Skyrim has come to an end. David and the crew spent months enduring the wilderness to bring this footage, and we hope we've captured the best of what the hardy inhabitants have to offer. For now, the team is going to spend some much needed time by the warmth of a tavern fire. So from myself, David, and the whole crew, thank you for exploring Skyrim with us, and once rested, there's other realms just waiting to be seen.